Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a massive cultural idea, one you hear all the time, that having kids will absolutely make you miserable. But is that actually true?
Let's start somewhere a little unexpected, a horror movie. Because for a lot of people, that's exactly how modern parenthood gets framed. The 1979 classic Alien isn't just a sci-fi thriller. For many, it's a terrifying metaphor for childbirth.
The movie's whole depiction of pregnancy and birth as this deadly, totally chaotic struggle, it perfectly captured the anxious mood of the 1970s. This wasn't just a movie, it was tapping into a real cultural moment.
And if you look at the data from that time, you can see it. For the very first time, the American fertility rate actually fell below the replacement rate. Now, things did bounce back for a while, but here we are again, seeing fertility rates drop to historic lows. And this time, it's not just about economics, it's being driven by a huge cultural shift.
So what is that cultural message we're all hearing today? Well, it's loud, it's clear, and it seems to be coming from every direction. And the message is simple: parenthood is a burden.
You see it constantly in headlines from major outlets, telling us that parents are just deeply, profoundly unhappy. We're told that having kids isn't just hard, it's a direct threat to your relationship, that it's basically a surefire way to kill the romance.
And it even goes a step further, right? Suggesting that the very choice to have a family is an ethically bad one for the planet itself.
So, what's underneath all these headlines? Well, it's really three powerful cultural ideas all working together: individualism, hedonism, and workism. They all create this worldview where kids are seen as obstacles to what really matters: personal freedom, pleasure, and your career.
And of course, you have celebrities reinforcing this message all the time, framing parenthood not as a part of a full life, but as a direct choice against it.
And you know what? This messaging is having a real impact. Get this, only about 1 in 5 Americans now believe that having kids is essential for a fulfilling life. That is a massive drop from what previous generations believed.
So the case seems pretty closed, right? Kids are a trap. But here's where the story gets really, really interesting. This powerful narrative, well, it just doesn't fit the latest data anymore.
So let's ask the big question. Is this whole parent trap narrative actually true? For a long time, older studies did show parents were less happy. But recently, the tide is completely turned.
Just look at this. This data completely flips the script on all those headlines. A staggering 59% of non-parents say they feel lonely, compared to just 45% of parents. And it gets even more dramatic when you ask about happiness and meaning. Parents are way more likely to say they're happy and that their life has meaning.
Now, this isn't about pretending parenthood is some walk in the park. This mother, Catherine, she's very upfront about the sacrifices and how hard it is. But then she describes this deeper sense of fulfillment that came with it, a kind of richness that just wasn't there before.
And this lines up perfectly with this fascinating psychological idea called the sweet spot. The whole concept is that a life without any struggle can actually feel kind of empty. It's the challenges, the sacrifices, like those in parenting, that can make life richer and give it more meaning. Okay, but what about marriage? Let's circle back to that Washington Post headline, the one that claimed kids are bad for your relationship. Is there any truth to that at all?
And let's be totally honest here. The source material is very clear. That initial transition to being parents is genuinely tough on a marriage. The stress is real, nobody's sleeping, and yeah, relationship satisfaction can definitely take a nosedive. But, and this is a really big but, that's not the whole story, not even close. Because once couples get through that initial phase and adjust, something incredible happens. Married people with children emerge as the single happiest group in America.
Just look at this chart. It's pretty striking. That first bar shows that a remarkable 84% of married parents say they're happy. Now compare that to their married friends without kids. That's the second bar, it's 73%. That's a huge 11-point gap. And both of those groups are way happier than unmarried folks, who are down at 65%. The data here is crystal clear.
So what is going on here? How can parents be more stressed out in the beginning, but end up happier in the long run? Well, the research points to a key factor: a person's entire mindset about what marriage is even for.
You see, a lot of us today operate on what the source material calls a soulmate model. The main goal is to find that one person who makes us happy. But that's contrasted with a family-first model, which sees marriage less about your own personal happiness and more as a partnership, one focused on a huge shared project, raising a family.
And you can see a powerful, real-world example of this family-first model with Indian American families. They have an incredible 94% marital stability rate. This is often linked to a cultural value they call familialism, basically a child-centered, family-first approach. They believe a stable marriage is the critical foundation for their kids' success. And it just so happens this group is also the most educated and has the highest income in the country.
This quote from neurosurgeon Ajay Anand just says it all. He says his own personal happiness wasn't the main goal of his marriage. The goal was creating a stable home for his kids to thrive. The happiness, he found, was a wonderful byproduct of that bigger mission.
So it's pretty fascinating, right? While our culture is constantly telling us that parenthood is a trap, the actual data seems to suggest it might be the path toward a more meaningful and ultimately a happier life. Which leaves us with one last question to think about. In a culture that's so focused on self-fulfillment, could the deepest kind of happiness actually come from focusing on something bigger than yourself?